Good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, November 11th. I'm here with Dr. Diana Montoya Williams. We are on our second day of the 2025 CHNC Symposium here in Denver. Did you get a good night's sleep? You weren't. You were.
I
You were too off
did.
the
I
time.
sometimes get more sleep when I travel for work than when I'm
So
home with
true.
my babies.
So true. So true. So true. All right.
Happy Veterans Day to our
That's right.
listeners.
That's right. That's right. I've learned over the last 4 years, we've got a lot of neos in the military, actually.
We do.
And learning about them has been really interesting in all the work they do for babies all over the world.
So grateful
sure.
for their hard work
That's
in the NICU and outside.
That's right. Well, let's recap a little bit. We've got a little bit of time this morning before we get to interview, well, a few more keynote speakers, some of the mentored fellows from the Mentored Fellows program, which is a really interesting program that the CHNC does. Anything you're taking away from yesterday?
There's so much that's
Yeah.
been kind of flying around my head as I listen to people talk and I listen to some of the speakers. I think there's a few themes that we really heard, right? We heard about all of the culture shift changing work that the focus groups are really trying to do, each within their own sort of niche and area. But we heard, for instance, about um, how some of the groups are really trying to collect a lot of baseline data to really understand the breadth of the variation of practice in terms of
Yeah, where
how
is the
we're
need?
how are we feeding babies who have intestinal failure? Who is falling through the cracks? Like, remember we learned yesterday that we have a lot of attention paid to those babies who are having intestinal failure after NEC or after some of these intestinal atresias. But what happens sometimes when they're not preterm or don't have the follow-up that we set up for babies who are preterm? Do we have the right follow-up processes in place to see how they neurodevelop in the inpatient space and even after they go home? And so really excited to see what the intestinal failure focus group is going to work on. I think another takeaway that I got yesterday was the surprising understanding that we don't really have the greatest definition, or didn't until now,
Yeah.
potentially have the best definition for what an emergent transport uh, is defined as in our
So
field,
it's
which was
decided
crazy to me.
on the fly, no pun intended.
Yeah, and
That's
so,
got to go.
we have this incredible new focus group,
Yeah.
the transport group, who's really trying to define what people are doing, how they're defining a transport as emergent, and it has such important implications for how we make decisions about moving babies and the prioritization of bed and bed availability, and even how payer systems are involved in this and how we reimburse. And so just that foundational work of how we define this is really important. And I learned how far we have to go yesterday.
I think, yeah, there are things you think are settled, but they're certainly not. Well, and I think there are a few things we learned yesterday are not
Yes,
totally
yes.
settled.
I feel we had some really powerful interviews yesterday with some of our family partners and the neonatologists who work with them. We were so privileged to have a former NICU parent here with us and talking to us about family-centered care. And I am always, taken aback by not just the bravery, the courage, but the resilience and the ability to transform an experience that can be really traumatic into positive growth and improvement for change, as a family partner in all of the work that we're doing in neonatology. But I also learned that, some of that positive change is how we even welcome families to conferences
Right.
and how much we have to really start to be really intentional about, concretely reducing the barriers that makes it really hard for parents to be here in these conferences. And we want to hear their voices,
For sure.
right? I think we understand that now. Like, that, I think, is pretty well understood, that our work is made stronger by family partners. So then how can we really intentionally get them here when they want to be here and want to transform their experience into something positive and contribute to change? How can we make sure that they don't take on any added burden to be here?
Yeah, and this idea about conferences are where new ideas are sprouted, people are sharing their abstracts. And so if we really talk about getting families in on the ground floor, I mean, we must have them at the conferences to say, hey, this is a great idea, but did you consider this impact on families? Did you ask families about this? We know that when we ask families, our research outcomes have been totally shifted in the last, let's say, handful of years. And so, you know, putting the paper out is too late.
Yeah,
So yeah, I
totally.
think that's neat. And they talked about the family councils, bringing
Yeah.
families in before we make those decisions saves us time in the
Yep.
long run.
Yep. The time efficiency, the breadth of creativity, the kind of matching of interventions. And it really got my wheels turning about, what does an invitation to a conference look like and how can I make it actually accessible to a family partner
Right.
who has to fly, stay, leave their children, or potentially bring their children. I feel like we've made such leaps and bounds at some conferences to help the conference attendees who
Yeah.
have children. So now we have to think about that with
Yeah.
our
Extend it to
family
our family partners
partners
for sure.
and those financial barriers.
For sure. I also we discussed with the Family Centered Care Task Force as they were leaving us that they want to work with every state quality collaborative that they
That's
can.
right.
So if you're
That's
a
right.
part of your state quality collaborative and you're not receiving the FCC task force um, materials, educational resources,
That's true.
definitely let them
They
know.
seem to have
Yeah,
CPE webinars and they just want an audience for these webinars. And so that seems like a really easy structural solution to getting some of these ideas out into the task force who are doing the work.
for sure. And I think the other thing I was most struck by is really a recognition here at the CHNC about parental mental health,
Mm.
having a full day symposium about it, recognizing and sharing, spreading, reminding people how, I mean, long term outcomes are 100%. I mean, not 100%, but they are 100% changed,
Yeah.
impacted by the parental mental health. It
Yeah.
impacts bonding, it impacts parent efficacy. That transition home is we recognize as a critical period, but I think that we learned some of the things we really should be looking at in addition to our discussions around universal screening. And I think we'll have the opportunity to talk about that again
Yeah,
today.
yeah, we had a
So that's good.
really powerful session with a really brave neonatologist. So I encourage our listeners,
That's
are they
right.
my
They're
listeners now?
yours. Yeah.
100% to check out that episode because it took my breath away to
Yeah.
hear her talk.
Absolutely. Well, we have another full day of interviews. Definitely check out the interviews that are out from yesterday, or check us out on the Incubator YouTube channel and stay tuned. Thanks, everybody.